on, guys? Aquaman here, back with another video. This time I'm going to be giving you all a new series. This one is going to be, I'm going to title this one Raw Thoughts. And the way I want to run this series is, of course, I've started covering New York albums in, mid 2022. And so I wanted to really sort of talk about some albums in 2021 and 2020 that I wasn't able to review, but still have strong feelings about. This is also going to be my way of kind of introducing new artists who may not have the largest catalog, who don't really have the bandwidth for like the good, the bad, and the ugly on. And so, yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to go over 5 albums. I'm going to rank them. And this is going to be sort of the quick and dirty of how I feel about stuff. I'm going to be a little bit more merciless with sort of the criticism. And, yeah, let's get into it. Like I said, so 5 albums. I'm going to rank them, in order in my personal opinion, obviously. So, yeah, let's get into it. Number 5 is going to be Untamed by Dusty Locane. This is honestly like a really inconsistent album, is the best way I could describe this. For someone who has so much potential coming up with all the great hits that he was coming out with, it really didn't translate into album success. And I think that this genuinely has to do with what I always talk about with albums that are too long. I feel like there are so many different song ideas that he tried that just didn't really land. And like the first half of the album is like pretty solid, you know what I mean? But like, especially that second half, it's like a 20-song album. And like, that second half really ends up dragging. The singing performances on this are genuinely pretty terrible. So when you see that like flow and vocal section, if this was just about flows, I'd give him a great. Like literally, I would if he took off every single like vocal song on here, I'd give him a great with the flows. But the vocals were so bad, and I can kind of, I don't know, especially like compared to what Pop brought vocally, this just does not compare at all. There's still a couple virtues, definitely. I thought the features were pretty solid. And when he was sort of finding those really good pockets, he was definitely doing his thing. A lot of these songs that he released before the album came out that ended up on the album were really, really good. And of course, Dusty's creative way of using samples is always dope to listen to. Songs like Roland Control Freestyle, I think that's what it's called. Super dope sample flip, right? But overall, definitely a bit underwhelming. I really wish, like I said, he would have like cut the songs down, especially for your debut, you know what I mean? To maybe like 10, 15 songs and just did something like with a solid impact. And what's nice is that you see on later projects, such as The Flu and the one he had with Cajun Waters, when the song is like when the song length is cut down, not song length, when the album length is cut down, he can actually really pack a punch. I think these last 2 projects that he had are actually really, really good. So, yeah. Overall, like I said, they're pretty underwhelming. Number 4, and this makes me really sad because I had high hopes for this artist, is gonna be Off the Yak by Young M.A. So it's interesting. Like, I think one thing I'm really learning to do is do an entire deep dive of an album, because if I just take the songs that I remember from the album, I can kind of have a warped perception of the album. And that was definitely the case on Young M.A.'s album. There were songs that I really, really enjoyed on this album, such as Friendly Reminder, Hello Baby, Off the Yak, and Yak Thoughts. But for the most part, besides those few songs, and Don Diva was actually pretty good. But Don Diva, I sort of enjoy more for Ruby Rose. It's not that Young M.A. was bad. I just feel like the beat was more for Ruby Rose, and I feel like she just came with a stronger verse. But it was, like I said, it wasn't necessarily super bad. It was just kind of meh. There were a lot of song ideas that were not only already played out, but I feel like Young M.A did a version of them that was like a lot worse than what I kind of expected, such as like on the song Nasty. A lot of like boring flows, a lot of repeating flows, and I don't know, vocally I was definitely a big fan of Young M.A's first project, and I haven't listened to her whole discography yet. But I don't know, vocally on these two projects that she's dropped in 2020, in the 2020s decade, that being Red Flu and Off the Yak, she just sounds really bored, if that makes sense. Of course, the writing is a great strong point of the record. She's got really great witty lines, and she's definitely a punchline rapper, so that's super dope to hear. That her rapping still translates over to an album. That being said, I feel like her writing kind of suffered in the sense that there wasn't as much diversity. Like, there was the few songs about girls where she kind of went over the same points 2-3 times. And then the songs about, ops and being a blood, where she kind of went over the same points, but then sonically there was no variation. And then there was, of course, the song Yak Toss, which I think is probably the best song on the album, where she really goes in and is honest about her struggles and strife, which is super nice to hear. But overall, I don't know. I wasn't that big of a fan of it. And I think, especially from Young M.A, who a lot of people tout as a top 10 New York rapper or a top 10, New York artist, it was definitely a bit disappointing to sort of not really see that level of hunger and sort of execution when it came to an album-to-album basis. But overall, like I said, not a bad project, just a bit underwhelming given the high hopes that I had for the album. Number 3 is going to be a project from an artist that I was not familiar with, so I didn't have any expectations going in. This is going to be Reasonable Drought, man. I didn't mind this project. I want to do like a full Redux review on it, because the more I listen to it, it is growing on me. But overall, I thought it was decent. It's a very like, it wasn't inconsistent in the sense that like it was good. It was like some songs were good, some songs were bad. It was more inconsistent in the sense like you'll see with the criteria is like some of the stuff about the album was like amazing, and then some stuff was like eh. Specifically, I feel like some of the flows and choruses were just, oh goodness, it wasn't for me. I'll say this: it's beginning to grow on me finally, but it initially, especially hearing it the first time, it was not for me. I feel like he approaches every song from a flow perspective pretty similar, and the choruses, man, I don't know. I just really didn't enjoy it. I get it; it's kind of like an experimental style chorus, but it just didn't really hit. That being said, Stove God Cooks is one of the most insane from like a punchline perspective. This is probably the best written track that we're going to talk about on this album, solely for the punchlines, bro. Like, there's so much stuff I didn't even catch. There were so many like references to movies and references to different situations, different ways that he flipped drug bars. That was really, really dope. I was talking about this with a friend of mine, but I think similarly to how you can kind of tell the difference between a K-Flock versus a Chef G, and the weight that Chef G understands that he carries on his shoulders, versus K-Flock and B-Love, who are still right out the trenches, kind of like super, super like just that like murderous energy that they kind of have. I feel like you can kind of make that same comparison between Stove God as the K-Flock, and then maybe a Benny the Butcher or a Conway or a Pusha T as like the Chef G, where it's like Stove God just sounds like he came, like Stove God just, I don't know what it is about his voice, but he just sounds so like he just got done cooking up some crack. You feel me? Um, and that's also a great way to transition into his voice, which is something I really, really enjoy about him. Of course, he is from Buffalo, but you can really hear that New York accent in his soul, and I really, really enjoyed hearing that. So overall, this project was really, really, really good. I didn't even talk about the production, man. I feel like some of these Griselda guys, I gotta be honest, like they get saved by their producers. Like I'll be like looking at my musical execution ratings for all these Griselda guys, and I'm like, bro, like if y'all did not have these S tier producers behind you, bro, y'all not y'all not hitting the same, bro. Y'all are not having replay value. Y'all gonna be great lyricists, of course, but like over mediocre beats, in my opinion, I don't know if Griselda has that same level of replay value. And Rock Marciano, man, this dude is insane with it. I'm mad. I'm just kind of getting put on to Rock Marciano through this project, man. But the way that he has this kind of orchestral production with all of his stuff, everything is so grand, and so strong that it's really interesting to hear. And there was so much diversity through the beats that it was, you kind of don't really notice that, you know, Stove God is coming on each song very similarly, because the beat makes it a completely different song. And so yeah, that was really, really a strong point of the record. And I definitely feel like, definitely for this project, I feel like without Rock Marciano, the musical execution gets knocked down to a mid or maybe a bad. But Rock Marciano's beats definitely helped this album really, really succeed for me. So overall, like I said, solid project, and y'all will see on the playlist. Now that I'm familiar with Stove God Cooks, I replaced Westside's song with Stove God song. So that's the Griselda trio that we're kind of working with right now, is Conway, Benny the Butcher, and Stove God. So yeah. And I'm really excited. I will say this. I'm really excited to see what Stove God cooks up. And that, by the way, that goes for everybody on this list. I'm really excited to see what they come with. I definitely feel like with Young M.A. and Dusty, well, Dusty, we already saw. He's already come with the better. You know what I mean? But with Young M.A. and Stove God, I'm really excited to see what they come with next, because I feel like they've laid the groundwork for a really solid discography or album run. But I really feel like they have to pounce and capitalize on the virtues that they have and cut out, you know, what they don't need. I also think that maybe a few more features on Stove God's album maybe would have helped as well. Maybe do what maybe like Pusha T did, bring some samples in there for choruses, or just some vocals in there for choruses, something like that. I feel like that would have definitely helped as well. But overall, like I said, I really enjoyed this project, and like I really encourage you all to listen to this just for the writing, man. The writing is some of the funniest, because he's got humor to him. You know what I mean? He doesn't take himself too seriously. He's got humor in his writing, but he's also like a real technical rapper. You know what I mean? And people, if you're not rapping, really rap fast, people don't want to give it to you. But this guy, man, super good at rapping. Number 2, I'm going to go with Karma 3. This is an interesting project, because despite the fact that I'm going to give it the number 2 ranking, I was a little bit more disappointed with this one than I was with Reasonable Drought. Dave East is from Harlem, you know what I'm saying? And he's a super good rapper with great punchlines and great lyricism. And he's, I think, one of the best at really getting into his experiences, if that makes sense. He's so good at talking about what he's been through and his life story, and I feel like that definitely gets really overlooked. But a lot of the choruses on here were hit or miss. He had a lot of features on here, but a lot of the choruses were hit or miss for me personally. The A Boogie chorus, the Trey Songz chorus, I felt like those really went in. But especially midway through the album, some of the choruses by some of those vocalists really didn't hit. Oh, his his song with Benny and Handsome were also really good choruses that he did by himself. So I don't want to neglect those either. But yeah, some of the vocals that he got towards the middle of the record were really kind of duds. They just didn't bring that vocal power, and I'm beginning to get sick of this like auto tune crooning whatever when you don't really bring much original to it. And so yeah, that's kind of how I felt about that. Um, Overall, the other thing that held this record back, and this is something where I feel like Don Q. This is definitely something where I feel like Don Q really, really thrives as opposed to Dave East, is the flows. I don't know what it is. I'm just not a fan of Dave East's flows at all. I feel like he borderline raps off beat to me. And it's not as noticeable because his accent and the beats and the bars are much more noticeable parts of the record, right? So it's not as noticeable as, say, um, the the boredom of Young M.A. on Off the Yak, but still, it definitely kind of brought down the record quite a bit. And I get it; that's kind of his style. But it just, like I said, just didn't jive with me. But overall, like I said, some of the strongest writing I've heard. Dave East is a real heavyweight in New York rap in general. Definitely top 5 of the prior decade. Really, really good album. One of the best underground guys. But I don't know, man. And I will say a lot of for all of the disadvantages of this album, a lot of them come from the features, but I feel like his performances are generally pretty strong. But I don't know, man. Some of those flows, wasn't a big fan of them. And then my favorite album that I got to go over was an album from another artist, a new artist that I want to introduce you all to, which is Zilla Kami. I got to go over Dog Boy. And truth be told, I'm not the biggest fan of rock. It's not that I don't like rock or think it's a bad genre or anything. It's just the guitars, the lack of soul, and the kind of weirdly out of context writing that they have has never really jived with me. Listening to people like Led Zeppelin, so I was kind of wary about this album, right? Because I didn't know where we were gonna go. Of course, I knew this was a rock rapper, but man, did this guy deliver! I feel like in a sea of very mediocre rock rap, we see, Lil Wayne when he tried rock rap, unfortunately, or Speeding Bullet to Heaven, or the sad, sad excuse for whatever Machine Gun Kelly. Can we even call that music what Machine Gun Kelly is doing? I don't even know if we can call that music. But with all the mediocre rock rap out there, especially in today's day and age, it was really refreshing to see somebody who really gave it their all and really worked to have a cohesive blend between the two that made for a really enjoyable listen. This was probably, from a musical perspective, my favorite project overall throughout. The beats were really vibrant and really intense. There was interesting guitar melodies throughout, and I really enjoyed some of the deeper songs on here, especially. The choruses were consistently really, really good. I know it's just him kind of repeating, but I thought that it still kind of brought an intense and aggressive feel to the album, which I really, really enjoyed. Some of the writing, man, like this is some intense writing. The songs like Dead Girl and Space Cowboy, and god damn, Frosty is sad. Frosty is a sad song. And just a lot of the more deep songs were really, really great. But even kind of the more murderous, more just kind of hype tracks had these funny, quirky bars that I really, really liked. There was nothing extraordinarily technical on here, of course, but I really overall enjoyed what he had to offer from a lyrical perspective, and from the production creativity perspective. I would say, and we'll tie this in with musical execution as well. The only problem I had with this record was that I don't know if the mix was bad or if that's how he wants it to be, but definitely the most annoying thing about this record was how hard it was to hear everything. Of course, I know that the instrumentals are really, really loud, and that's kind of the point. It's we're rocking out, right? But I don't know. It really it it was just it was definitely annoying to feel like I had to like really cue in. I had the lyrics I had to listen to, and I had the like everything off. Just This Album was on playing, because if I didn't do that, I was gonna miss some right. And that was kind of an annoying aspect of the record. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's just that this is how he wants it to be. But I don't know. Go listen to it and let me know what y'all think. I just felt like the vocals and the lyrics just felt, and it sucks because they were really good when you caught them, but they were so hard to catch. It was like, why put all this effort, right, into doing it if you're not even, like, if I can barely hear the vocals themselves? But overall, the mixing was just really, really weird to me, and I think it kind of worries me for future Zillakami releases, because I feel like it's gonna be like, you know what I'm saying, lyrics don't get synced up instantly, right? And so it's definitely gonna be hard for me to like review the record, because I'm not always gonna know what he's saying, and that's kind of a bit of an unfortunate pitfall of this record for me. I don't count it majorly against him, but I do want to bring it up just because I feel like it was definitely a part of my album experience. But there are people who really, really like that, so you know, it is what it is. But yeah, those were just 5 albums that I wanted to talk about. 5 notable albums from 5 notable New York artists that I thought were pretty interesting and had a lot to be spoken about. With that being said, thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what y'all think of this kind of video in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite project out of the 5 in this comment section below. And all right, peace, y'all. The albums we will be ranking today are Karma 3, Off the Yak, Untamed, Dog Boy, and Reasonable Drought.